Hey everybody, welcome back. I'm the Stretch Professor, and today we're going to be doing the 9-10 80 carry tier list. Be sure to check out my patch notes video and my support tier list if you haven't checked that out already. And if you enjoy the content on the channel, be sure to like and subscribe as well. It's free, it's easy, just takes a couple of clicks, really helps out a ton with visibility on the channel. And check out the other offerings as well. We have lots of topical guides, coaching sessions, individual champion playlists, and then we also stream every night starting around 9:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. It's a wonderful community. We'd love to have you. Come check it out on YouTube. Okay, let's go ahead and get in here, and I am going to try to do this a little bit faster. I know I say this every time, but I've really got to try to get these tier lists to about like 30 minutes or so. So if I talk about a champion a lot in past videos, then I'm just going to kind of give you the TLDR of that champion and why they're still in a similar spot on the tier list, and I'm going to focus more on kind of the newer things that people might be wondering, the stuff that's been changing in the meta. So Xayah moving up a little bit, Xayah starting to use Mirror Mana over the last few days, and then Jhin doing the multiple Infinity Edge build, as well as maybe a little bit more on Misfortune and why she's rushing Blade the Ruined King. So I'm going to hit some of the new and interesting things and spend more time on those and just kind of hit you with the TLDR about some of the other strong champions that I've talked about for several patches now. Okay, so overall in this meta, it's going to be a huge nerf to Gensu's. So all of the Gensu users are going to be a little bit weaker with the exception of maybe Xayah with this new build that she has. But Kog'Maw and Varus and Vayne are all going to be down pretty significantly, although they'll still be all right in some circumstances. Xayah can probably still make it with this new build, but overall she might be powered down a little bit as well. We'll see. It doesn't seem to have affected her win rate so far, but it might down the line. I do think that builds that use Essence Reaver, Phantom Dancer, or Rapid Fire Cannon and Infinity Edge are going to be very strong right now. Essence Reaver just got buffed on this patch as well. So the biggest user of this is going to be Sivir, and that's why she moved up to the #1 spot. We'll talk about that here in a second, but this also is going to apply to Xayah, and it could also apply to Ashe. Excuse me, had to sneeze there real quick. So those champions are all going to get just a little bit better. And in general, like champions that don't have to go double zeal are still going to be really, really strong. So that's going to include like Draven, who goes for 2 heavy 80 items. Sivir's going to do the 2 heavy 80 items. I guess that's, and Jhin gets a lot of heavy 80 items. So the double zeal users aren't going to be that strong in general, except for perhaps Jinx. We'll talk about that as we go down a little bit. Ardent supports are still pretty strong overall. If we look at win rates here, you're still going to see a lot of that. So champions that can benefit a lot from attack speed and on-hit stuff are going to be pretty useful, although once again, Gensu's did get nerfed on this patch. But champions also that can kind of fend for themselves a little bit more, that have a bit more mobility, that can react to some of the divers that are coming out of the jungle. We're still seeing Hecarim's fairly popular, Jarvan's still strong. We're seeing more Rammus coming into the meta a little bit. We're seeing some Sejuani. And a little bit of a Moo. So there's champions that can, position well and not get caught out by a bunch of CC are going to be really useful. So as far as supports go, we're still going to see like Sona, Nami. Lux usually does get Ardent Sensor. She's moving up a little bit. But some of the other ones are moving down. Like Soraka's moved down just a pinch and Janna's moved down just a little bit. But most of the top 80 carries are going to have, some way to position to get around some of these things in team fights. Okay, so lots of engage, just mentioned that one. Magical Footwear and Biscuits are still going to be standard. I had tried out sort of a Ghost Poro plus Relentless Hunter build. There are a couple of champions that might use that, but in general, it looks like a lot of 80 carries are still sticking with the Magical Footwear and Biscuits. The Biscuits are just such great sustain and lane. Magical Footwear is a really good bargain. It is hard to stack Ghost Poro if you're not going to be getting a warding item. It takes a lot longer, so it'll be over 20 minutes before you get the Ghost Poro stacked. Now, Taste of Blood is still good. Relentless Hunter is still good, but you're not going to be roaming around as much as 80 carry. As a support, you need to be able to rotate between lanes quite a bit more, and you need to go ward. So Relentless Hunter is a lot better in that situation. So I had tried it out on this patch. I do think that Ghost Poro is really good on supports, but on 80 carries, probably not as much unless they're already going into the domination tree for something like Hail of Blades on Callista or, something like that. Anyways, and the reason for that, again, if you haven't seen this in a couple of patches, is they nerfed Celerity and Absolute Focus, and so people switched to Magical Footwear and Biscuits over the last couple of patches, even though Footwear did get nerfed on the last patch. Okay, so let's go ahead and get into the 80 carries themselves. So I think Sivir's going to be #1 here. Should get one of her major items buffed on this patch, and Ginsu's got nerfed, so it's kind of a double benefit for her. Something bad happened to other AD carries that didn't happen to her, and something good happened to her that didn't happen to a lot of other AD carries. So Sivir's really strong in this meta, and I know that Jolty's out there, you know, like pulling his hair out over this, and I know there are some people that don't like Sivir, but the name of the game is wave clear with Sivir, and that's very, very powerful in this meta. It's powerful in almost every meta, but specifically because there are some wave clear mids that are becoming more popular, but you still see lots of mids that don't have as much wave clear, junglers that don't have wave clear. You know, there's a lot of assassins running around, and so just having that wave clear helps out so much because it allows you to get priority on different objectives, and at the same time, it allows you to stall out the game if you're behind. So even if you're in a losing lane, you can still wave clear and hold up your tower for quite a long time. If you're in a winning lane, you can push the tower, take those plates, rotate, get scuttle easier, get dragon easier. Just a huge amount of benefits to wave clear. I talk about this a lot with support, specifically when I'm talking about Lux and Nautilus. But in AD carry, it's really, really important as well. And she has some of the best wave clear in the business, if not the best wave clear. And it's good at just all points of the game. Like I said, you can stall. If you fall behind early, you can go farm a side lane because she's got that spell shield, because she's got On the Hunt to help her escape from sticky situations. She can actually go push outside waves if she needs to later on. You need to, you know, coordinate that with your team so that they don't get caught out while you're doing that. But that is on the table, and not many other AD carries can farm their way into the game like that. So that's number one, that she has tremendous wave clear. Even if you're in a bad matchup, even if you get camped by the jungler, you know, a bunch of bad things can happen to you, and you're still going to be relevant in the game because you can still clear waves, you can defend your tower, and in theory, you can keep your CS close to the enemy, even if you fall behind. Another way that you're useful, even if you fall behind, is On the Hunt. So we're seeing a lot more tanks come back into the meta, a lot more bruisers. You know, you're seeing more Sejuanis, Hecarims, Vys, Jarvans. You know, in the top lane, Darius just got buffed quite a bit on this patch. So there's a lot of champions that are really powerful that can get kited in other lanes. And so On the Hunt just allows you to run your whole team in to hard engage on people. So even if you're really far behind the enemy AD carry, you still have utility. You still have the use of On the Hunt. So you've got your wave clear, you've got your On the Hunt. If you're ahead, you know, this allows you to engage for your team. It allows you to disengage too. You know, if your whole team's about to get caught out and everybody's about to die, or even if it's just you, you can still escape with On the Hunt as well. So once again, you know, very good if you're ahead. You can get the priority with the wave clear. You can engage with On the Hunt, but also pretty good from behind. You can retreat if you need to. You can use that wave clear defensively to defend towers. Another thing is she has spell shield in lane. This makes it very difficult for a lot of hard engaged champions to get her if you use this properly. So it makes it really hard to hook her with things like Pike, things like Nautilus. She can block his ult in a team fight. So there's just a lot of good uses for spell shield that helps protect her. She's got a lot of mobility with On the Hunt. She also has a lot of mobility with her passive. People forget about this, but every time she auto attacks somebody, she gets extra movement speed for 2 seconds, not decaying, the full 2 seconds. It's not pulling a Soraka here on you. You get the actual full amount there for 2 seconds. So, you know, in most team fights, she's going to have an extra 30 to 50 bonus movement speed. So it allows her to kite even easier. And she has great access to the back line. So when you're attacking tanks that are going to be on your front line with Ricochet, it's going to bounce back and do a ton of damage to the back line as well. And this can crit, don't forget. So when she gets a lot of crit, it's not only critting the tank, but it's bouncing around and dealing damage to the back line also. And even when you're sieging, when you're pushing down a minion wave, these ricochets are going to bounce off of the wave. And a lot of people are going to be standing too close to the wave, and it's going to be free harass on them at the same time that you're wave clearing. So that's just tremendous that you get this basically free harass that's relatively cheap mana. You can follow up. This does quite a bit of damage, a surprising amount of damage on this Q, specifically if there isn't any minions in the way, if there aren't any minions in the way. It does a lot. So if you have somebody like a Lux who binds, or you have somebody like a Leona or a Nautilus who hard engages, opening up with that Boomerang Blade does quite a bit of damage because remember, it can hit twice. So when you double tap somebody with this, it's 140% of your base AD at the lowest level, and it scales all the way up to 220 with 230 base damage. So that's a pretty tremendous amount of damage that you can do early on. So she's great. She does almost everything well. She team fights really well. She can split push if she needs to. She has utility. She scales really well at the itemization right now. She's just always relevant in every game. So it's just really hard to punish her in lane too. because you can't ever get priority in the wave to try to engage on her or to try to gank her or anything like that. So we want to put this back to footwear and biscuits. And she really does need the biscuit. She needs that mana in the laning phase. And then just Essence Reaver, Phantom Dancer, and Infinity Edge, especially if you want to go split pushing. That helps keep you safe. You can do Rapid Fire Cannon, but I don't think your first hit matters as much as a lot of other champions. And she's very easy to play as well. That's another thing to mention. The only thing you really have to do with Sivir is block stuff with your spell shield, you know, have decent reflexes for that. And then use your Ricochet as an auto attack timer. So if you're attacking the enemy AD carry, you know, just remember to land one auto attack and then press W so you get that auto attack reset in there. Other than that, there's really not that many mechanics to her. She's very straightforward, very potent, super strong champ. So just Lethal Tempo, Triumph, Alacrity, Coup de Grace, Footwear, Biscuits, and then Essence Reaver, Phantom Dancer, and Infinity Edge. All right. Next up, Jinx. We've talked about Jinx a lot in the past. Jinx is still the highest win rate AD carry by a small margin. Sivir is definitely catching up. And kind of like Sivir, Jinx has a lot of utility to her as well. She's a little bit more dangerous than Sivir, so if they have a lot of all-in engage, if they have like, you know, a Hecarim, Jarvan, Nautilus, that type of thing, it can be a lot scarier. But she also puts out a lot more damage. So in general, she has really good wave clear as well. Early on, you can turn on your Fish Bones, you know, clear out the wave. Same thing as Sivir, get priority, go get scuttles, go get dragons, you know, walk with your support to get deeper vision. You always have that capability. You can snipe out some free easy kills with your ult. Flame Chompers, really good follow-up. If you have the Nautilus or the Leona or Lux lands a bind or whatever, you can throw those Chompers down. Chain CC people, that's really handy. It's decent peel for yourself as well because people can't jump over Chompers anymore. So if like you're afraid Lee Sin's going to Q on you or whatever, he lands that first Q, you could drop that Chompers, block him out. She has really good poke though as well, and she has longer range than Sivir. So Sivir does have pretty short range. She only has 500 auto attack range, so she bounces and she can get her ass off with her Ricochet and Boomerang Blade, but her basic auto attacks are going to have a shorter range, whereas Jinx is going to have some of the longest range in the game. Gets up to 175 extra range, so I think that puts her at 700 total range in team fights. And remember, these rockets, the main thing that you need to know about Jinx is whenever you get Hurricane on Jinx, each one of those Hurricane bolts turns into a rocket off of Fish Bones and splashes for AoE damage. So if like people are clumped up, let's say that there are 3 people grouped up together and you fire one auto attack at them, the first auto attack is gonna splash and hit the other 2 people for full damage. It doesn't fall off. And then each one of those Hurricane bolts is gonna do the 40% damage, but it's gonna splash to everybody else as well. So you're basically gonna be getting 9 hits on people with that. And all of that can crit. And not only does it crit, it has an extra modifier with Infinity Edge. So this basically means that you just completely melt people in team fights. Once you get Infinity Edge and Hurricane, and you turn on Fish Bones, if people don't stop you in a team fight, you're just going to completely delete everybody. So it's kind of like Sivir in the sense that it does massive AoE damage. It gets around the tank because she has such long range. She can even attack the back line or at least kind of the mid line there, even if you have a tank in your face. She has a lot of power, and then if she does get a kill or an assist, she gets to activate her Get Excited, which gives her a ton of extra movement speed so she can kite people out, run people down, and gives her quite a bit of extra attack speed as well. So she's got wave clear. She has pretty respectable poke in lane with Zap. She has a decent utility ultimate that allows you to snipe out some free kills. She has some follow-up CC with her Flame Chompers. She scales really hard late game. She has respectable early game. She's just fantastic. So Sivir's still going to be really strong. So yeah, a little bit more vulnerable than Sivir. She doesn't have the movement speed with the R or the passive. She doesn't have the spell shield, but she does have a lot of extra range, and she puts out even more teamfight damage than Sivir does. So more dangerous, but if you can make it work, also more powerful. So you just want to go Lethal Tempo, Triumph, Alacrity, Coup de Grace, and then thought I'd change all these out. I guess maybe I didn't. Footwear and Biscuits as well. So she doesn't need the mana quite as much as Sivir does, but it's still going to be handy. And I've been digging this Georgia font lately as well. I think that looks, I don't know, kind of chill. And I think Rapid Fire might actually be a little bit better on her to get that initial first rocket off. Although you can go Phantom Dancer if you need a bit more safety. You can go Static Shiv if you need a bit more wave clear. Static Shiv is a bit more rare, but, you know, it is an option that's on the table. Okay, and then Draven. Now, if you're a really good Draven, Draven could be number 1 right now. There are several ways you can build Draven. I personally like the Klepto, Footwear, Biscuits, Time Warp package, and then you can go, I think a lot of people go Triumph and Coup de Grace. It's the next few abilities. So the way that Klepto Draven works is whenever you activate your W and walk up an auto attack, that's going to give you Klepto procs. So it allows him to double down on his early game aggression. You end up getting a lot of free potions, both health potions and mana potions, to keep you aggressive. You get extra bags of gold to help you snowball even harder. You get wards so that you can push up and remain safe. So I like Klepto a lot. Some people will go press the attack on Draven. I really don't like Conquer right now. It takes way too long to stack up because most fights are going to be done in about 3 auto attacks with Draven anyways. Press the attack is okay. It allows that third hit to do that extra little bit of burst damage, which can really catch people off guard and gives you a little bit more play against tanks. So at least you expose kind of that vulnerability so your team can help take them down a bit faster. But I think that Klepto does give you more lane oppression. It's easier to use. It's easier to proc. And it just allows you to just, keep your foot on their throat with all those potions and all that extra vision that you get. So I think that Klepto is going to be the best case in most scenarios. And what makes Draven really strong is this spinning axe here just does a ton of extra damage. It's almost like you're coming to lane with a free BF sword. Even at level 1, he does 35 extra bonus damage and 65% of your bonus AD. So you're not going to have a lot of bonus AD coming into lane, but when you think about sort of your Doran's Blade and your runes, I guess with Klepto, you're not going to get a lot of AD off of those runes, but it's still going to give you, somewhere in the neighborhood of like 40 extra bonus on-hit damage early on. And Draven should rush Bloodthirster pretty much every time. I see some Dravens rushing Infinity Edge. I think that's incorrect most of the time. And the main reason for that is this bonus damage does not crit, but it does apply lifesteal. So when you get something like Bloodthirster, you'll see Draven just heal up a ton off of auto attacks on that minion wave because he gets so much extra damage off of the spinning axe. And it gives him a shield so that he can all in and get a lot of benefit out of that as well. Now, you do eventually get Infinity Edge. I think you should go Bloodthirster and then Infinity Edge next, and then probably Rapid Fire Cannon after that. But I think that it's important to start with that Bloodthirster so that you can really, once again, double down on the early game aggression, make it impossible for people to trade with you. And so he's great. He does a lot of really high-end burst damage, excellent against squishies, good play against assassins, because he can kill them just as fast as they can kill him most of the time, and he's going to have that shield off of Bloodthirster. You get some nice steroids off your Blood Rush, gives you a little bit of extra movement speed so you can run people down, allows you to proc Klepto really easily. And then Stand Aside is something that a lot of people really underestimate. This can stop a lot of movement effects. It can stop a Jarvan from trying to flag and drag onto you. It can stop a Hecarim from charging you, a Tristana from jumping on you. Just anybody that has any kind of mobility, it's handy. If you're really good with it, it can knock people out of like a Thresh Lantern. So if you throw it at somebody right when they're about to click the Lantern, you can knock them off the Lantern. I've seen so many really, really clutch uses of Stand Aside. So it can stop channeled abilities. So like Katarina's trying to channel her ult, or Jin's trying to channel his ult, or Xerath. There are just so many uses for this. It's very, very handy and has pretty respectful range too. And then kind of like Jinx, he can snipe out some free kills with Whirling Death as well. And obviously, if he gets kills, it's tremendous. He gets a ton of extra gold off of his passive. I will say, if you're duoed with someone, Illaoi is actually a pretty good support with Draven. That sounds pretty troll. I have a whole video about it though. Whenever you rip their spirit out with your E, if you kill that spirit as Draven, you get to cash in your passive. So it ends up giving you a ton of extra gold, and it makes it almost impossible to duel him because Illaoi does so much damage anyways, just base damage in her kit. She doesn't even need a ton of items, and so it's a super oppressive lane, particularly against melee supports. So if they have something like a Nautilus or an Alistar or Leona or whatever, Illaoi plus Draven can definitely lay down the law. They can really crush those lanes hard. So that is just an option out there. But yeah, you usually won't have an Illaoi support with you, but if you do, it's fantastic if you're Draven. And then, yeah, like I said, Bloodthirster, Infinity Edge, Rapid Fire Cannon is where you want to go from there. Okay, next up we have Xayah. Now, Xayah has moved up quite a bit on this patch, and I think a big part of it is people are finally getting the correct build on her. I think there's been a really long time where people were trying to go double Zeal items on her, and I think it really sucked. I think she's always been a really good Essence Reaver user, and I've been advocating this for 5 or 6 patches. People are finally getting it. Yes, it is a bit better. It does have 5 more AD, but I think it was still really good to begin with in the first place. So very similar to Sivir in many respects. She's a great team fighter. She has really awesome wave clear early on. She does have a safety mechanism. It's her ult, though, instead of spell shield, which is on a longer cooldown, but also puts out a ton of damage and can protect you from a lot of different things. So Featherstorm, very powerful. And now that people are doing more 5-on-5 team fights, we're seeing more Amumu's back. We're seeing Ramesses, Jarvans, a lot of these tanks out of the jungle. Games are slowing down just a little bit. I think she's going to be a lot better. Also, Rakan got some major buffs last patch, and a lot of people thought, well, that's the nail in the coffin for Rakan. I was telling people, no, it's actually a really good buff for solo queue Rakan, and it has been. Rakan's win rate has gone up. Yumi's win rate's like 32%. Rakan's win rate has gone up quite a bit. It's almost 52%, and if you recall, I believe on last patch it was low. Yeah, it was, well, that's historic, so that's just on this patch. But his win rate was as low as something like 47, 48% or whatever. So he's up 3 or 4% on this patch. And whenever Rakan's a lot better, Xayah is going to be a lot better, because when you have Rakan with you, she does extra damage off of her deadly plumage. So if Rakan's nearby, he also gains some movement speed and shoots out the feathers. So Xayah and Rakan are fantastic together. Rakan is becoming a better support, especially if you're a skilled Rakan. And with the new Essence Reaver, or like the changed Essence Reaver plus Rapid Fire Cannon plus Infinity Edge, you can just put out a ton of damage. Now, one thing also, she benefits heavily from going AD and crit. So having both heavy AD and heavy crit is awesome, because her Blade Caller scales off of crit and it scales off of AD. So this is why you almost never want to go something like Rapid Fire Cannon Static Shiv or Rapid Fire Cannon Phantom Dancer, because those items have no AD on them, right? So you don't get any benefit out of this. And this does a ton of damage. So you just want that full AD as much as you can possibly get it. She has a great ratio on her Featherstorm as well. So pretty good champion. You have to practice her, but she's really good at peeling back, laying out a ton of feathers, doing a ton of damage in team fights. Great wave clear. Pretty good CC if you hit people with 3 feathers. Then you root them for a pretty solid duration. I don't know if it has it on here. I think that's right, under Blade Caller here. Yeah, roots them for 1.25 seconds. So very handy, powerful champ. So you just want to go lethal tempo, just get those feathers out there as fast as possible. Triumph Alacrity, Coup de Grace, and then just Footwear, Biscuits, and then just Essence Reaver, Rapid Fire Cannon, and Infinity Edge. So I think she's definitely a sleeper in solo queue right now. She doesn't have a fantastic win rate. She is harder to play, but she has been very popular at MSI. As has Rakan. So pro players have not forgotten about her, but I think a lot of solo queue people have. So she has a fantastic win rate right now overall. So she, like I said, she is a bit harder to play. She, usually wants a Rakan with her, but overall, I still think pretty good, even if you don't have a Rakan with you. Okay. And then finally, Xayah. So I just want to spend just a couple of minutes here talking about Xayah, because there is a new build on the block now, and I did some research on this, watched a couple of videos, and at first I thought it was really dumb, but it actually kind of makes sense. So Xayah now is getting Manamune, and this might seem really weird, like why would you get this? But the best explanations that I've seen so far, there have been some Korean people getting this, is that it's a really cheap item that helps you evolve your Q 700 gold faster than Stormrazor, is what it comes down to. So you're going to have to complete pick plus your first item. So you're going to have to get either Manamune or Stormrazor, and then Pickaxe, which builds into Ginsu's, before you can complete, or before you can get your Q evolve. But with this, because it's so cheap, it's only 2,400 gold, then that's going to allow you to get it a lot faster. And 2,400 gold is a big deal. I mean, a minion wave has like a maximum of, I think, like 120 gold on it. It might be a little bit less than that, but it's somewhere between like 100 and 120 gold, not including the cannon minion if it has a cannon on it. So maybe on average, like let's just call it 150 with the cannon minion, average out every other wave. So once again, not an exact number. I don't remember the exact number on a wave, but it's about 150 gold, right? And so if you're getting it 700 gold faster, then you're going to be getting it about 5 waves faster, assuming perfect CS. And so that's going to be 2.5, 3 minutes faster because a wave comes out every 30 seconds. So that's a big deal. And considering that most people don't get all of the CS on every wave, you're going to be missing some whenever you back, whenever you're pressured, whenever you just don't know how to last hit. You know, you're going to be missing some CS. So realistically, you're probably going to be getting it 5 or 6 minutes faster, your Q evolve. So instead of getting your Q evolve at, 20 minutes, now you can get it at 15 minutes. That's going to give you a lot of extra time, a huge window of power early on in the game. So what I've heard people are doing is they're on their first back, they're getting pickaxe, and then they're getting tier after that. So you still have some power on your first back. And then you have that small little dip whenever you have tier, but then you're able to complete mirror mana shortly thereafter. So there might be one small back in there where you're going to be a little bit weaker, but a lot of times someone's just going to have a BF sword for this amount or a Bilgewater, right? So that's 1750 gold. So they're not going to be able to get that much. They might have boots and a BF, but they're not going to be that far ahead of you in raw power. Like they might be up, 15 AD. But another thing this early tier of the goddess does, it allows you to have tremendous wave clear. So then she transforms into something more akin to like a Sivir or a Xayah or a Jinx, right? She gets a lot of extra push because then you can keep spamming your rockets over and over again, or your whatever, your Icathian rain over and over again, and just push them in a tower. So if it's a tough matchup, you just put them in a tower, get priority, get your wards down, get some scuttles, maybe roam a little bit with your support, go grab the golems or the gromps or whatever. Just wave clear opens up a lot of opportunities for you. And since you basically have infinite mana with tier, then that does allow you to continually, spam your Q, both for wave clear and occasionally if you can, if someone tries to get close to you, you can even spam it on the enemy. So that's really handy. Void Seeker, you can throw more of these as well, try to fish for some extra damage. So having tier is helpful. It's not as useful as it is on someone like Ezreal, but it's still helpful in that context. And it gives you your Q evolve, like I said, 5 minutes faster, so you can really get aggressive a lot earlier on. And it's pretty efficient overall, Don't forget, with Mana Immune, unlike Archangels, you don't have to cast a spell to charge it. You can cast spells, but you can also just auto-attack. So just auto-attacking the wave, this charges up really, really fast. And then once you complete it, it's 139% efficient. I think it's still going to take you, by the time you complete your Mana Immune, it'll probably still take you about 10 minutes to complete your Mirror Mana. But it is going to be really handy. And don't forget, this gives you extra AD as well, 2% of your maximum mana as bonus AD. So it's going to be at least 20 more AD, so it's going to be 55 damage. But realistically, later on in the game, you're probably going to have 1,500 to 2,000 mana once you complete Mirror Mana, so that's realistically going to be closer to 30 to 40 extra AD. So you're going to have 65 to 70 AD in the mid to late game, so that's already going to be more than Stormrazor. And this is an on-hit ability, this unique shock. So whenever you have Ginsu's second, every third auto attack is going to double trigger your Mirror Mana. So it's going to be doing, if you have your, 1,500 or whatever mana, then it's going to take 3% of your current mana and deal 6%. So you're going to get 90 on-hit damage if you have 1,500 mana. So yeah, it's like, okay, Stormrazor, what? It does like 50 damage on hit or something like that every so often that it charges up. This is doing 90 extra damage when you open up on someone early. Every single time. You don't even have to charge it up. And the Ginsu's Phantom hit triggers it twice. So even if you only have 1,000 mana left, it's still doing 60 damage, and then it's going to trigger this again and do an additional 60 damage. So it's going to do 120 damage. So this adds up really quickly. It does a ton of damage. And so it gives a lot of utility. It gives you wave clear early on, allows you to evolve your Q about 5 minutes faster. It scales really well into the late game, does a ton of extra bonus on-hit damage, gives you an extra, 15 AD, 10 to 15 AD in the late game. So it's just really, really good. And Stormrazor sucks. Everyone knows Stormrazor sucks. Just no one's been able to find anything that much more useful other than this. Now, the drawback to this build is you're not going to evolve your E as fast. So you're not going to be able to go invisible as fast because this has no attack speed on it. But you're still going to be able to evolve it, I think, fairly quickly if you do Berserker's Greaves plus Ginsu's. You might take a piece of Nashor's after that. So this might delay your E by an extra, 5 minutes or so, but it's going to give you your Q 5 minutes faster. I think the Q is much more important. especially for some of those early game skirmishes, those little 1v1, 2v2s that you might get involved in. So that's the new build. That's the new hotness on the block. Other than that, Kai'Sa's really popular. She does not have a fantastic win rate right now, but she is on the hard side to play. I do think that if you practice her and more people start doing this build, and I think it looks cool, it's interesting, it's kind of nutty. There's probably going to be more all caps videos about it soon. If Philo hasn't done a video about it, he'll probably do one soon. But yeah, that should raise her win rate a little bit. I don't expect her to go up a ton with that build, maybe like 51%. People certainly love playing her though, so this does give her a better early game power spike. Once again, there's a small window there where you're going to have tier, but they shouldn't have that much power before you complete your mana immune. Like they're probably not going to be able to afford like BF pickaxe before you get mana immune. That should come online at about the same time, and that's going to give you a similar level of power. So I think it's going to be pretty good. So she's got good wave clear with her Q. She scales really well later on into the game. She can melt tanks, melt squishy. She can reposition and get a really big shield off of her R. A lot of people are also building her with AP again. So you're seeing Nashor's Tooth. And this gives you like some pretty good threat as far as your overall damage, because this Mirror Mana puts out quite a bit of physical damage, especially that on-hit damage, and then you can get Nashor's Tooth, and that puts out a pretty good chunk of magic damage. So this is really nice, especially if you have a lot of AD on your team. If you have an AD jungler, AD top laner, she still is going to be one of the best sort of mixed damage AD carries. And you're seeing a lot of Nashor's Tooths out there. Some people will go Ruinant's Hurricane instead. So Ruinant's Hurricane does more damage to multi-targets, but Nashor's Tooth, I believe, does more single-target damage and gives you CDRs, so you're going to have your abilities up much more often. So it's about an even split, depending on which way you want to go, but I think both of them can be pretty good. And then, as kind of like a super rich item, if you're snowballing very hard, like he's 14-2 in this game, you can get a death cap later on, but the core build is going to be Mirror Mana plus Gensu's, and then kind of read the situation and decide if you want Hurricane or Nashor's Tooth, or you can just get both a lot of times, so what a lot of people are doing. Nashor's is really cool because it gives you the extra 20% CDR and like a lot of attack speed, which works very, very well with your Mirror Mana activations and, of course, your Gensu activation. So, and you don't have any other critical strike items with this build, like you're not going to be getting Infinity Edge. So I think that makes Ruinant's a little bit less appealing, but if you really need it for team fights, it can still be strong. And it's going to be cheaper, I believe, a little bit cheaper than Nashor's Tooth. So if you're not sure, I would probably err on the side of Mirror Mana, Gensu's, Nashor's, Ruinant's. But, it could change. So I'll put Nashor's in there first. Okay, and then just press the attack. You don't want to do Fleet Footwork anymore because you're not taking Storm Razor, and then just Triumph Alacrity, Coup de Grace, and then Biscuits and Footwear. Okay, pick it up. Didn't make it in 30 minutes, maybe 45. Let's keep cranking. Okay, so Twitch, it's really dangerous not to put Twitch in tier 1 because he's so powerful. But I moved him down just a little bit because he has a pretty weak early game presence compared to some of these other champions. Even Xayah has a better early game presence now with that new build that I was talking about, just because you can wave clear so fast. So he is a really good AoE team fighter later on, and he can get back into the game really easily with his stealth. So, and he can roam and, make plays. So if the enemy has a really immobile champion in the mid lane, for example, and you think you're going to have a lot of kill threat there, you could go invade. Or if you think you're going to have jungle priority, if they have like a late scaling jungler and you have somebody who wants to invade and get a lot of kills, you can team up with, or if you're duoed with a jungler or a mid laner, you can use that invisibility. Twitch is also going to be really strong with a lot of these Ardent Sensor users. So specifically someone like Lulu is going to be really strong with Twitch. So kind of has a tough time early, but if he can sustain through it, if he can make it through the early game, then he can scale really well later on to the game. So you could put him up against someone like a Xayah early on, but it's just basically how well do you use that invisibility and how much do you value it. If he gets to 2 items, he can completely delete teams with his Blade the Ruined King plus Gensu's, or not Gensu's, Hurricane, but he is just a lot more vulnerable. He doesn't have the mobility of someone like a Xayah or a Xayah, and he doesn't just have the raw power early on of someone like Draven, who can just turn around and just beat up a gank or whatever, right? Or just maybe even just flash and kill that Hecarim whenever he tries to ult him. So he's just a bit more vulnerable, but he has really good team fighting later on. Okay. And then you're still just going to want to build him Blade of the Ruined King, Hurricane, Infinity Edge. It's just kind of your standard build there. And then just Lethal Tempo, Triumph, Alacrity, Coup de Grace. And then just Footwear and Biscuits. Still going to be the standard. Like I said, I was trying out Poro last time. I think it's going to be a little bit weaker. Okay, Misfortune is kind of a weird build. I talked about this several patches ago. This has been becoming a bit more popular lately. And it has a pretty decent win rate, I think, even at higher elo. I don't know if it was played at MSI or not. I don't remember seeing it. It may have shown up in a game or two. But pretty decent. Not as dangerous as some of the other champions out there, but pretty solid. So you're just going to go Blade of the Ruined King and then Youmuu's. And then after that, I think it's kind of up to you. A lot of people will get this item, the Edge of Night, to help give you a bit more protection. Now, there's not a large diversity of people here that are playing this, right? It's pretty much just Arrow and Maha. So it's not like super popular in high elo, but I think it can work nevertheless. So how this works is traditionally Misfortune has been thought of as someone who just basically sits there and channels her ult, later on in the game, right? And so she has good early game harassment, good poke, and then she transitions into this just kind of like ult bot later on in the game. You're still going to have that, but the Blade of the Ruined King build early on allows you to steal some movement from the enemy, so it allows you to chase him down, allows you to kite a bit better, and a lot of people are maxing Strut, so you might go 2 to 3 points of double up in the laning phase, and then you max Strut after that. And what this does for you is it gives you a lot of extra movement speed. It doesn't decay, and it works both offensively and defensively, so even when you're in combat, you can activate it. And a lot of this extra bonus movement speed and attack speed means that you can use that Blade of the Ruined King to, win trades very handily early on because you're just going to be attacking and lifestealing so much. And allow it, stripping that movement speed is really nice too. So the name of this, whole build is speed. You're faster than they are. You have multiple ways to slow them down. You can slow them down with Make It Rain. You can slow them down with Blade of the Ruined King. And you're going to be able to run them down with your Strut. This also allows you to rotate around the map a lot faster, so it gives you better back timing, so you can go back, get your key item and then return to lane before they can. It allows you to rotate to action, so if there's a fight breaking out around Scuttle, you can get over there a lot faster. You can push out a side wave and get back to the action a bit faster. If your team forgets to push middle and they're positioning for Baron, you can push middle really quickly and then rotate over there right as the fight's breaking out. So gives you a lot of macro pressure on the map because you can move around so fast. And then your double up does apply Blade of the Ruined King as well because it does apply on hit effects. That's a pretty decent way to do a little bit of extra chunk when you're trying to siege later on in the game. And you're still going to have the bullet time. So all of this movement is really important because bullet time, you have to have really good positioning. So if you're caught out in the middle of a fight, you get sandwiched and jumped on, then you need to be able to reposition so that you can get a good bullet time off where no one's going to CC you or come over and try to fight you while you're channeling this. So that's what the movement speed allows you to do as well. So yes, Blade of the Ruined King does not synergize very well with bullet time. You're going to do less damage overall with bullet time than if you just rush something like Duskblade, Ghostblade. But at the same time, having that extra positionality and that extra ability to fight people even when your ult's on cooldown with your Strut Max can be a very, very powerful thing. And there's a lot more team fighting going on. Amumu's the highest win rate jungler right now. You're seeing Sejuani come back in. You're seeing Vi come back in. Jarvan. So she's fantastic with things like Jarvan and like Amumu who can hold people still and you just channel your ult. So really good team fighter. Overall, scales pretty well. Not as great with the auto attacks as someone like a Sivir or a Jinx, but really good caster. Applies a lot of pressure. Can really punish a lot of those early game champs or champs that need to scale that aren't that great in the early game. So overall, pretty unique champion, unique build. You just want to go press the attack, Triumph, Alacrity, Coup de Grace, and then, and then just your standard Footwear, Biscuits. It's also pretty nice that you don't need the boots as much early on. It's still nice to have them, but she runs around so fast anyways that you aren't impeded as much by not being able to buy the boots if you want to go Footwear. Okay, and then I have Jhin kind of at tier 2. There has been a new build that's been cropping up. It's not really been that popular with a lot of pro players, but I've seen a lot of people talking about it, is the multiple Infinity Edge Jhin build where you just build, 2 or 3 Infinity Edges. You see that every now and then here. The problem with this build is it's super expensive. So it is still cost efficient technically, you are losing the bonus or whatever on it. But because he scales so poorly off of attack speed does convert over to AD, but it's at a very poor rate. You're much better off just getting AD. So instead of getting something like Phantom Dancer or Static Shiv, you're way better off just getting more AD and more crit. And I think that's the same on a lot of champions. And a lot of people are just starting to realize this, that, hey, maybe just having bigger hits, off of AD and bigger hits off of crit are going to be better overall. Why am I... Oh, there he is. Especially on champions that have abilities that do a lot of damage. So just champions that are going to sit there and auto-attack a lot, like a Tristana or a Jinx or something like that. Yeah, attack speed's pretty good. But on champions that have abilities that have really high AD ratios where they just want to, spike people out, it's so much better to go to heavy AD items, whether that's Bloodthirster Infinity Edge or Essence Reaver Infinity Edge. And I think a lot of people are coming around to that idea. I meant to look at Infinity Edge. Sorry. Running on low sleep here, running out of time. There we go. So yeah, it is still cost efficient. It's 111% efficient. So not insane, but it is similar to Essence Reaver. Essence Reaver is a bit better at 124, especially after the buff. So I think that now you want to get an Essence Reaver. I would go Infinity Edge, Essence Reaver, Rapid Fire Cannon. So I wouldn't do the double crit. I mean, it's nice. Basically what you're saying here is it worth giving up 10 attack damage to have 20% cooldown and this mana refund? And I think it is after the first Infinity Edge. You definitely want to rush Infinity Edge first. But I think that Essence Reaver, that's definitely worth it. I mean, 20% cooldown is going to be about 530 gold, 550 gold, something like that value. And 10 AD is going to be 350 gold. So that alone, you're going to get 200 extra gold worth of value. And then you get this extra basic attacks, refund missing mana, which doesn't seem super relevant because he attacks so slowly, but it actually does add up. It can be very, very handy, particularly when you're trying to wave clear and then you're going to show up to a fight directly after that. So I think that Jhin can still be really strong. He does punish some of these early game champions like Xayah, if you see Vayne, Ezreal, that type of stuff in lane. And he's really good with Lux, who is becoming a lot more popular as support as well. And you're starting to see a revitalization of things like Xayah, also in response to a lot of the enchanters out there. So he's really good with those bursts or all-in champions like Nautilus or Leona. He can definitely blow people up quickly. So I think you just want to go Electrocute, Taste of Blood, Ghost Poro, Relentless Hunter, and then Triumph and Bloodline is what I've seen a lot of people doing. And then Boots of Swiftness, just so you can move around even faster whenever you land those crits. And then just Infinity Edge, Essence Reaver, and then Rapid Fire Cannon after that. I do think that getting Rapid Fire is still worth it just because by the time you get to your third item, you're going to be hitting so hard off of all that raw AD and crit that just having that extra attack speed, or that extra range rather, can allow you to chunk somebody out from 700 range away. You can do half of their health on a crit. So I think it's definitely worth getting it as a third item. You might even want to get it as a second item, Infinity Edge, Rapid Fire, and then Essence Reaver, but I would still probably go Infinity then Essence. Okay. Varus going to be dropping down just a little bit. He is pretty popular in pro play right now, but the Gensu's build did get nerfed out quite a bit. He still has nice utility, though. He has free Grievous Wounds on his W. He still scales up really hard later on in the game with the on-hit build. He does have some playmaking potential with his ultimate, especially in team fights. So unlike Ashe Arrow, it disables not only just one person, but also a bunch of different people. So that's really handy. So yeah, pretty good late game scaling champion, has 575 auto attack range, has good self peel with his ult, good utility in team fights. It's just that Gensu nerf is definitely going to hurt him. So the Blade into Gensu's is still an alright build, but it's not going to be as strong as it was a little bit ago. But you just want to go Ruin King, Gensu's, Hurricane, Wits End. So if you need some initiation, if you need someone who can start a fight, I think he's probably going to be the best choice. Ashe does have a significantly higher win rate though. Ashe is at 53%. I think Varus is down at 50%. He has gone up a little bit. I think he was 47 a while ago, but that is something to think about there. But I just like Varus a little bit more. I think he scales more in terms of raw damage later on. And like I said, I like that he creates a lot of threat in team fights because those tendrils force people to spread out. Especially when you have someone like a Jarvan or an Amumu or something like that, a Nautilus that can hold a bunch of people still so that they're going to get hit by those secondary tendrils. I think he can still be pretty strong. Caitlyn, really good Caitlyn's are good right now. She did get a buff on her trap, but so many Caitlyn's are so bad. If you've watched the stream, it's so frustrating to watch people mess this champion up. So many people just don't put down their traps. They don't follow up any CC or damage that you use with their Q. They sit there on full mana. They never auto-attack the enemy. These are all bad things. If you play Caitlyn, you're on the clock. You have to dominate early. You have to take towers. You have to close out the game. So, you know, you need to be auto-attacking every single chance you can get in the laning phase. You need to be hitting people with Qs. You need to be actively placing down those traps in the most annoying places possible to try to get people to step on them. You know, you need to be taking those tower plays. You need to be aware of where the jungler is so that you don't get ganked and thrown behind. So she can be really good. I think that if you go... And I would actually build her a lot like some of these other champions that we've seen. I would heavily consider going... Infinity Edge into Essence Reaver on her because like attack speed on her sucks for the most part. Like, she has really low base attack speed. It's like a 0.56 modifier. And she does so much damage. Like, people think she's all about those auto attacks. It's like it's her headshots that do the damage. And those traps do a lot of damage. I mean, if you look at this headshot here, you know, it does almost 100% extra damage and it can crit and do even more damage on those attacks, right? And then look at this headshot mechanic here. It's got 100% bonus AD when you max out your traps with 240 base, and you get a normal headshot off of that. So that means you get this damage here plus this damage. And if you have an Infinity Edge and like Essence Reaver or something like that, then you're going to like crit somebody for like 1,500 damage off of 2 items. It's insane. So it's so good. So, you know, I think that, you know, and I've been messing around with this build. You know, the traditional build is, okay, you're going to go Fleet Footwork, you're going to go Infinity Edge, Rapid Fire Cannon, something like Static Shiv. But I think that maxing Trap first is the way to go because this is so much extra damage on these traps. It allows you to lay down more traps, and you can place them out so much faster. 30-second cooldown on Trap versus 12 seconds. Ton of damage, and it lasts even longer. So you just get tremendous scaling off of this thing. Massive damage, and you could even go Kleptomancy. This is something right out of the Draven playbook. These things are so cheap to lay down. They're only 20 mana. Lay down a trap, drop 2 auto attacks on somebody. You know, you have 650 range on your autos. It should be really easy to do, especially when they're under tower. So I think you could actually realistically run Klepto on Caitlyn. I've tried it a few times. It definitely can work out early on. So, I mean, what are you giving up? You're giving up Fleet Footwork, okay? So you're not going to be getting, you know, a ton of Zeal items anyways. So, I don't know. Like, you're going to get potions. It's going to allow you to heal. Like, you're going to get wards. You're going to get extra gold. You're going to get mana pots. So, yeah, you're giving up a little bit of extra movement speed off of not having Fleet, but I think that having Klepto is really, really nice. So, I don't know. I know I'm in the minority on that, but I think the Infinity Edge, Klepto... You can go Rapid Fire. Rapid Fire is really nice on her. But keep in mind that Rapid Fire also does not stack with the Headshot. So Headshot gives you an additional 1,300 range, but it does not stack with Rapid Fire. So right here will not have any effect on extended range for headshots, okay? So Rapid Fire is very good if you're not doing the headshots. But if you're landing a lot of headshots, then having something like Essence Reaver is going to be much better because you have such a huge amount of AD here. You know, you want to be able to spike people. So I think that going something like, you know, Infinity Edge, Essence Reaver, and then Rapid Fire Cannon would probably be the way to go. Maybe even Bloodthirster or something after that. So I think that she's pretty good. You know, a lot of people aren't doing that on Caitlyn. I don't believe a lot of people are doing that on Caitlyn. No, a lot of people are still going Lethal Tempo or Fleet Footwork. And then they're going, you know, the double Zeal item. So I think a lot of people are late on this. But keep in mind, you know, people just thought of the Mirror Mana, like on Xayah. That has been available the entire time, and people are just now thinking of that. So, you know, a lot of times goofy, innovative builds aren't really good for a lot of reasons, but sometimes people just come up with stuff that other people haven't thought of that can be really effective. That's what makes the game interesting, I think, is trying to unlock these secret things. So I think that is something to consider on Caitlyn. But regardless, I have her down in low tier 2. She probably deserves to be tier 3. It's just the stuff in tier 3 is even worse than tier 2, just because most people don't play her. But if you're a really good, don't play her correctly. But if you're a really good Caitlyn player, what's up? That's right. Oh no. All right, bye. Love you. Yeah, I'll get her up and take her in a second. Yeah, I'm going to do a, I'm going to be on campus. We're doing like a writing contest grading thing. Yeah. Anyways, so she has the potential to be really good. People just don't play her correctly. She's a lot harder to play than people think. For some reason. It doesn't seem like she'd be hard. I think she's just very, very misunderstood what you're supposed to be doing when you're playing Caitlyn. You're not supposed to be farming. Like, she should be played much closer to, like, a Draven type of playstyle than she should be played as, like, a Jinx type of playstyle. You should not be sitting there chilling, like an Ezreal type of playstyle. She should not be sitting there chilling. She should be, like, straight up, like, in your face, massive aggression the entire time. Okay, and then tier 3, and we'll end it up, just so hopefully we can end up in under an hour here. Ashe is all right. You know, she has good initiation. She has good poke early on. If you use your hawk shot really well, that can be a huge boon to your team, being able to scout the jungler and figure out what's going on and predict their pathing. But it takes kind of some next level sort of knowledge and macro to really use that and help your team make good decisions. But if you can do that, Ashe certainly can be good. She's really squishy, and she has no escapes. So I would rather play something like Varus, just because he has the team utility and, you know, off of his tendril spreading in team fights, and just because he's going to do a lot more damage over time, scaling with that build, that Blather and King plus Ginsu's build compared to Ashe. But Ashe can be all right. Vayne, I dropped down quite a bit. I think that the nerf to Ginsu's and the direct nerf to her is going to be a big deal. You know, I could be overdoing it on this, but even before those nerfs, she's just fallen off so hard, I think. She just gets bullied in lane badly a lot of times. So, like, if you survive the lane, you can make it. But if you get left alone and just pushed in a tower over and over again by, like, a Jinx, Draven, Sivir, you know, all of those champs, then it's going to be bad news. She's also not that great in team fights. She does take out tanks really well, but she has no AoE damage. You know, she doesn't take Hurricane. She doesn't have any natural area of effect damage like Sivir's bounces or Jinx's rockets or Xayah's feathers or Kai'Sa's missiles or whatever. She just doesn't have any of that, or Twitch's ultimate or Miss Fortune's ultimate. All of these champions have more ways to do a lot of damage in team fights. So she's much more of a duelist. She wants isolation one-on-one type of fights. But she can't win those fights until she gets to 2 items. And so she's in a really weird place right now. People might start going towards the 3-item Vayne again, which I think is going to be really bad. So you're going to have to go crit again. It's like Blather and King plus Phantom Dancer to Infinity Edge. It's just too much gold for those items. She might still try to go Ginsu's, but it's going to be rough. Ginsu's is already, like, it's good on her. It was good on her, but she doesn't use, like, the magic pin very well. You know, she doesn't like the AP on it. She has no AP ratio, so it's already kind of inefficient on her. So we'll see how she pans out, but I expect her to drop a couple of percentage points on this patch. I think she'll be closer to 50 to 51% by the end of the patch. Lucian is still okay. You know, you can fight early on. There has been a new build floating around with him where you end up getting Blather and King into Essence Reaver. Then after that, you can go something like Phantom Dancer. And that's a pretty decent little build. It gives you the mana regen, gives you a little bit more wave clear, a little bit more push, better damage. The thing is, like, Black Cleaver is just too slow. Like, Blather and King, Black Cleaver, it's just not enough damage. It just can't keep up with crit. You know, because a lot of the primetime AD carries are going to be really strong on 2 items. So, like, Sivir, you know, Jinx, Draven, Xayah, all these champions are going to be really strong on 2 items most of the time. Whereas I think that it takes Lucian, like, 4 items. Like, he's good at the beginning and on 1 item when he gets Blather and King, but I think he falls off, like, quite a lot on 2 items. And then 3 items, he's okay. And then 4, he's strong again. So he's kind of like Caitlyn. He's like a short-range Caitlyn to that extent, where he can put out some early-game aggression, but then he falls off pretty hard after 1 item and doesn't come back online until way later in the game. So he's okay. But he doesn't offer a lot to get back into the game either. He has no CC, limited follow-up. He's very close range, so if your team's pretty far behind, it can be really scary to try to walk up, near those assassins in team fights. So he's all right, but I think that he has been weakened significantly because of the meta over time. Kog'Maw is okay. I think that the nerf to Ginsu's is pretty rough on him. He did have a pretty high win rate, so I could be wrong about that. But he is very immobile. He has fallen down a little bit. But he is really immobile, so he's easy to catch out and kill by a lot of champions. If you do have a Lulu on your team, he can be very strong. Lulu is becoming more popular and is becoming stronger right now. But she's still one of the least popular enchanters and one of the lowest win rate enchanters overall. Yeah, she's sitting at about 50%. Most of the other enchanters are 51, 52 plus. So he's okay in some situations. If you really need a ton of magic damage on your team, like everybody's all AD, then he's one of the better like heavy magic users. Of course, Xayah can fill that role quite a bit too. And then finally, Tristana, I just need someone to round out the list. She's all right. She's short range. She is very safe, but she requires multiple items. She's going to get the double zeal item, which is not a great build these days. But if you do get ahead early, she can snowball because she can jump forward. With her bomb, blow somebody up and jump right back out. So she does have the bomb reset mechanic. She does take towers really quickly. She has nice peel with her ultimate. So she's got a lot of utility to her. It's just the itemization and runes aren't great on her right now, but she's all right. And then finally, honorable mentions. Ezreal, I think he's just terrible right now, honestly. Sometimes there are really good Ezreals, but it's rare. It feels like it's like 1 out of 4. Now, his win rate is not 25%, but it's pretty low. Like, it's one of the lowest of all 80 carries. I think he's at, like, 48% or something like that. Yeah, he's down there. He's a little bit below Zig's 80 carry. Now, very few people play that, but, yeah, he's not in a good place. Although I do have Lucian a bit higher than he is. He just takes too long to come online. Like, if you can take over the game immediately as soon as you get your Mirror Mana plus Iceborne Gauntlet, then, he can be pretty strong, but I just feel like he's okay in a poke comp. So, like, if you have a lot of disengage on your team, if you have a lot of peel, he can be pretty good. You just have to make sure you have a lot of damage in other positions, and that they don't have a lot of hard engage and tanks. Because he has a hard time taking down tanks. He can dodge hard engage himself, but he's just not going to kill a lot of those bruisers fast enough. Sadie, stop. He's just not going to kill a lot of those bruisers fast enough before they completely mow through your team. So he's all right. If you're really good on him, he can definitely work, but you're definitely going against the grain there. And Kalista is someone who's been seeing like more pro play recently. She can be very impressive in the early game, but you have to really take off early and just close the game out. She is very good with something like a Nautilus or something like a Rakan that you can throw in there. But you need a lot of practice on her with the orb walking. But, kiting people out, using a ton of extra early aggression can be really strong. She is going like a Hail of Blades build, which I think is pretty decent. Now, she only has a 45% win rate. I think, once again, it's because a lot of people are really bad on her, and she requires time. So early on, you can kill people, but later on, because you're not running crit, it requires a lot of time to stick enough spears in somebody to matter. So you're just pretty much saying, I want to snowball super hard, and I want to have some engage in the form of throwing my tank on the enemy team, throwing the Galio on there, throwing the Nautilus, whatever the case may be. She can be pretty good. So she's going to be best on like 2 items with Blather and King plus Hurricane, and then she's going to fall off pretty hard after that. Just because like built into her kit, she has very limited AD scaling, and I think you go Bloodthirster after that. And she actually has an extra modifier on attack speed, where she only benefits from 0.9 of attack speed that comes through. So she's got some really weird anti-scaling in her kit because she can take over so hard early on. But anyways, that's going to be it for this video. Thank you very much for tuning in. Hope you enjoyed it. If you did, be sure to like and subscribe. It's free. It's easy. It just takes a couple of clicks. Be sure to check out the support tier list and the patch notes tier list as well if you'd like. Stop by the stream. Starts around 9:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time every night on YouTube. We'd love to have you. It's a great, wonderful, friendly community. And that's going to be it. Have a good day. See you next time.